And so if you're tuning into this video, it's because you want even the bigger background of why we're doing this and how for lower elementary in-person learning. So again, I'm Sam O'Brien, your head of school, and I'm just going to take you through a review of this year, what has happened. And specifically, one thing that has happened is we've been regularly gathering data, gathering feedback from you, continuously looking at best practices and new information, and then based on our mission and vision, really doing what we think is best for our students on the whole and trying to meet diverse views. Specifically, this is a review of a timeline of everything that's happened since July. Including at the bottom there, you can see MDE and Governor Walz changing the guidance for health and security and safety practices at schools based on new information that Governor Walz and Department of Education and Health have gotten from epidemiologists and from seeing how in-person learning has been working both in our state and around the country and the world. I'll remind everyone again that at the top here, you'll see that there's a model in which we want to remind you that we have worked with family feedback scenarios throughout the whole year. And then at the bottom there, we're going to keep monitoring for the whole school and all ages as we go the health criteria happening in our region. That bottom right-hand corner shows the speedometer, though, that speedometer that has been used and referenced by me in the past. That shows cases per 10,000 corresponding with different school models. And what we've got guidance on now is that local testing of our staff, the availability of vaccinations, which is happening slowly, but is happening for our staff, as well as now new information about best mitigation practices to keep adults from contracting or spreading COVID-19 between adults and students is also new information from the Departments of Health and Education for us. And so we're implementing those new local guidelines. And what we're saying to the families, and all the families in the Lower L right now is we want you to save the date. And we don't want to wait to make that announcement to save the date because March 8th is 6 weeks away, just under 6 weeks away. And if between now and then everything goes according to the Department of Health and Education's plan and all the schools that have opened in the metro area for elementary learning, everything is going well, we are confident that we also will be able to open safely on March 8th and meet the needs of the many distance learning families that we know are interested. I talked about this in my first video, that we have some graphs here for an equity lens comparison of compared to all families, which you see in the bottom left-hand corner, how would the two separate broken down demographics of Black, Indigenous, and students of color compare to those families? And what you can see in that bottom right-hand comparison is that in the whole elementary as a whole, there are a few percentage points more of BIPOC families that would prefer to stay in distance, but close to a 50-50 split still. Where we do see a big difference is if you break out a different demographic of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Those free and reduced lunch qualifying families, 2/3 of them would prefer to have their students in-person learning. And we see that reflects the anecdotal data and emails and correspondence we've been having with families all year. If we look just at lower elementary data, again, breaking out those two demographic groups, and I want to explain these are two separate demographic groups to make very clear. And also these are two demographic groups, both free and reduced lunch students, and then separately students who identify as non-white, who tend to be underserved by educational systems. And so we are centering these identities as we look at and make our decisions. Again, what we see here is just over half of our BIPOC lower L families would prefer in-person learning. And then 3 out of 5 of our lower elementary free and reduced lunch families would prefer in-person learning for their students. And so we're anticipating as we save the date that if we see new developments in public health, we will adjust accordingly. Either we'll learn positives, ways we can be even more secure in our mitigation efforts for the virus on campus and be successful, or we'll see challenging developments and we'll be able to postpone our in-person learning date. And all the planning and all the work we're announcing now that we have done between now and any potential postponement will still be very useful. And we will keep postponing a date until we are secure. However, at this point, with the best information we have, we're very confident that March 8th can be an in-person learning date for lower elementary students. That means also families can still choose distance learning, and we will work between now and February 19th when we survey families, and then now and March 1st when we plan, and March 8th when we implement, to make sure that we have a strong learning model for every student in our school. A plan is necessary to save the date and anticipate so that we are prepared. And we don't want to wait until the end of February to announce a plan, have to wait 6 weeks from then. So as we continue to monitor, I just want to let everyone know we can postpone the date, but we really want you to save it and anticipate it. And then as we move forward, I just want to remind folks that we are working with constituents of families and students, you who are listening to this, as well as faculty members, perhaps you also who are listening to this message. And we are taking into account all of the faculty who want more information and really want to refine how we're going to be safe and secure on campus. And then all the ideas that are really important from you as families about what we'll need to keep doing to stay successful. One of the reasons that we're really prioritizing lower elementary in-person learning is because it's important to us to recognize that, especially our lower elementary students, to make the kinds of accomplished gains in skills for reading, for literacy, for relationships, for social development. In-person learning, especially for ages 6 through 9, is really key to making the kind of developmental benchmarks that allow us to make progress into next fall and next year. Excuse me, I bumped my computer. So again, our school mission is going to guide us with understanding who do schools serve, who is often underserved by schools, and how can we center and hold up the need to serve those people first. And then secondly, looking at health and safety, relationships, learning success, and state guidelines as necessary benchmarks for anything that we do. I'm just going to run through that. The decision making and accountability for this as a school is that the school board has delegated to me as head of school, and also the managing director, Wendy Fisher, who is managing on-site day-to-day safety and implementation and making sure learning is joyful there. Also, the program director at this level, Jean Peters, is working on the responsible work to make sure that this plan works. And then the school board is accountable. So I answer to the school board, I explain this plan to them, and the school board makes sure that the work that I've done and that I've done on behalf of our team, as well as Jean and Wendy have done with me, is verifiable and reliable, and that we're consulting families and staff and our COVID advisory along the way. Also now at the level of how are we going to do this, that's why we're making an announcement now and working over the next 3 weeks with our teachers, our educators, our classroom assistants, our education assistants in the special education area. And we're really working to make sure that as we're working through these problems of how do we do this in person, how do we meet the needs of distance learners and in-person learners, that the answers are coming from the experience and wisdom of each person in their level. Then Jean Peters, as the accountable program director, is importantly responsible for making sure those people have the resources they need, and then also responsible for making sure that when the program is moving forward or when these plans are implemented, that she has made sure to understand them and again verified that they're reliable plans. So what if vaccinations continue to be slow? What if neighboring schools experience outbreaks or concerns? What if surrounding school districts are having challenges and go to distance learning themselves? What if a staff or student gets traced to COVID transmission? Or what if a new variant of COVID is shown to be more active? Basically, all these what if questions could change what we're doing. And that's why I mentioned we can postpone this announced date. And when we postpone it, it would be because we have new information that requires us to take more time to plan, and also requires us to be cautious if necessary. So these are answers to each of those questions. And the basic answer is we know COVID exists. We know that our classroom practices have to change. We also know that as the pandemic continues, even with vaccinations for guides, even with vaccinations for all our educators, even with a declining case rate number, if there is a case and we're still in a pandemic, we will quarantine that classroom of close exposures. And that's part of our model planning now too. So what is next is that we're going to follow our distance learning cycle through February 24th for sure. These announced projected dates of opening the lower elementary, here we're almost on time, announcing on the 28th that on March 8th, we want to plan in-person learning, and that we're going to continue to take in students in our SRC on site, and we're also going to continue to listen as we go. So thank you so much for all of you who have watched and tuned in, and I look forward to hearing from everyone over the next few weeks and working together. Thanks much.